we're so able to talk about like bodily fluid functions and stuff like that. And we're talking about like pee funnels, and we're talking about like pooping in the mountains, and there was no sense of judgment from each other.
Being in the women's space in the mountains was really, really nice. And especially for the first experience that I've had in the mountains, it was definitely like, it made me feel most safe and able to really be myself and grow as much as I can.
That's Cheri Hing and Aubryanna Jarko. Cheri and Aubryanna were teenage recipients of the Summit Scholarship Foundation's 2024 Mount Baker Youth Climb. I'm Angie, and this is See Her Outside, brought to you by the Karen Project and the Summit Scholarship Foundation. We share stories of women, girls, and gender-diverse adventurers to promote belonging and visibility in nature. We hope that this story inspires you to advocate for a more inclusive outdoors. "72% of women feel more liberated when they're outdoors," according to REI's 2017 National Study on Women in the Outdoors. That same study showed that most women feel societal pressures too, and I quote, "Stop being so dramatic. Be sexy. You should lose weight. Don't be so emotional. You should smile more." For many women, outdoor adventure is a place to escape the stress of everyday life and all of that toxic messaging. The problem is, women aren't always encouraged to get into the wild. Over 60% of women in that REI study said that men's interests in outdoor sports are taken more seriously than women's, and that men are taken more seriously than women when shopping at outdoor stores. 6 in 10 women even struggle to think of an outdoor female role model. At the Karen Project and the Summit Scholarship Foundation, we want to shift all of those statistics. We want girls and women to feel liberated everywhere, not just in the backcountry. We want women to be taken seriously in outdoor sports, and we want them to be able to name adventurous female role models. And we believe that by investing in our youth, we'll help catalyze those changes. Cheri and Aubryanna didn't know each other before they received Summit scholarships for the 2024 Youth Mount Baker expedition. I got on a call with them a few months after their climb and asked why they even applied to the program.
For me, I have always loved the outdoors. I grew up in Washington State, and so whenever I was able to make it outdoors with my family or with my friends, I've always felt like something has been able to like complete the picture for me in a way that's been so helpful, like in building connections and building overall memories. And so far, that just made the outdoors so special to me. And being able to go outdoors with a group of strangers and all be able to connect in that way and just be able to learn so much from each other and build strong connections with people we would have never been able to meet otherwise sounded so appealing to me. I think what made me a little bit nervous was being able to like look through the Summit Scholarships website, because they're very like well established in a way that it was like so professionally done that when I was looking through it, I was like, oh my goodness, like all these past scholarship recipients are so qualified. Like they're amazing. They are such change makers. So in that way, it was a little bit intimidating because I was like, oh, like, am I going to be able to amount up to that? Or do I have like that same change? And are they going to want me in the way that they wanted all these other people that are so amazing? So I think that was just definitely one of the challenges a little bit. But I feel like after I submitted that application, I was like, you know, like the worst has like nothing really bad can happen after this. Honestly, like the most that this has taken is like some of my time, but like nothing really bad will happen if I don't get chosen at this point.
Cheri developed this go-getter attitude out of necessity. Her parents grew up amid war in the Khmer Rouge regime, which killed millions of civilians and forced Cheri's parents to flee their home after unsafe living conditions with limited food and resources. When they immigrated to the USA, they didn't speak English and they were forced to work multiple jobs to survive. Cheri remembers feeling a financial burden on her shoulders, even as a kid, as she watched her family work tirelessly to give her food, clothing, and an education. That pressure followed her as she became a legal adult, working multiple jobs to support her family and her own education. At 18 years old, Cheri knew that in order to go on an expedition like on Mount Baker, she would need the financial support of something like the Summit Scholarship Foundation. Meanwhile, Aubryanna was thousands of miles away, facing her own barriers to outdoor adventure. Living in Illinois, Aubryanna filled the lack of physical mountains by soaking up all the media she could about climbing and mountaineering. To her dismay, most of what she saw and read was about men. She told us that seeing the lack of female climbers in media started to form an image in her own head about what a mountaineer looks like, and that women might not belong in the mountains after all. That image changed for Aubryanna when Lucy Westlake became the youngest American woman to summit Mount Everest at 18 years, 6 months, and 8 days old. Aubryanna went to the same high school that Lucy did, and seeing a strong woman from her hometown complete such a feat gave Aubryanna a flash of inspiration. She wanted to do something big, too. But mountaineering is expensive, and Aubryanna didn't have much experience. Of course, that is where the Summit Scholarship came in again. I asked Cheri and Aubryanna to share the story of their climb together.
So we had already spent the night with each other at the hotel. So we had already gotten to know each other over dinner and packing our bags and then driving up, which took a long time. So I felt like we were already a really good team and we were all ready to get started.
I remember when we had gotten up early that morning, we had only met the night before and we'd only had dinner and packing together. So at this point, we're all pretty much still strangers. And it was great because Sunny, Danny, and Kat, all of our guides, really helped kind of get us talking to each other and create a great atmosphere for us to start connecting. And I would say as we started our hike on the first day, we only had about 4 miles for climbing up to our camp spot. And it definitely got easier along the way for me personally when I started seeing more of the views. At one point we had climbed up above the tree line almost, and we had a straight shot clear view of Mount Baker, and it was just gorgeous. You would see all the snow on it, and you would see just how large it was in magnitude. And it kind of had that moment for me at least where I was wow, we're actually going to make it up there. We're actually headed there.
So the day after we got there, we had a full day of glacier camp, basically, where we learned what we were going to do. First thing was just footwork, which was really basic, but actually helped so much. So first we got 30 seconds and Kat, one of our guides, was all right, go run and play in the snow like you would want to if you're just a kid, and how you want to move in the snow. And I think most of us ended up falling because it was just so slippery and we weren't using proper footwork to move around. And it was fun, but it's not going to be efficient to actually do anything. So then she taught us actually march step and just how to walk up the mountain. And then we learned crossover and then how to walk down the mountain. And then we came back and learned self-arrest, which that was my favorite part because you literally got to slide down the mountain and then had to stop, which at first was very, very hard and I did not do it correctly. But it did get easier and very, very fun. So that night we started getting ready for bed at 5 maybe. And I was tired, but I wasn't ready to go to sleep. And I think I slept for 30 minutes, but then I woke up and I was I actually cannot be in here anymore. It was suffocatingly hot. And so I think me and Cheri then left and she was let's go sleep on the snow. And so we literally took our sleeping pads and put it on the snow.
I was a little bit nervous because I was if I'm going to be doing a big climb tomorrow, I'd love to get some good rest. So when we went to sleep on the snow and stuff like that, I think in hindsight, that was way more fun for the memories rather than actually trying to get some more rest.
I think our guides had been up for a little bit and they were all all right, guys, time to get up. And it was first I was really excited, but also it was 10 p.m. and I did not want to be waking up. But we got up and we made our little drinks and breakfast, which was nice. The guides were very much not stressed. They were very calm. And for me, that was very reassuring. we're going to do this. Like, they've done this before. Easy. This is going to be amazing. And then we started climbing. And then we finally did get to like the edge of the glacier. And it was like, and we had to get up on the rope team and get our harnesses on and actually start climbing up the glacier. And that was when everything really got real and like, wow, we are starting this now. And that was the best part.
I think for us, we started realizing pretty early on that we might not be able to summit, because the night before we had been told by one of our guides that a team near us on the mountain that also slept at the same camp as us went up and summited the night before, and they had came back and told us about the conditions on Mount Baker at the top of the summit, about how there's a lot of snow melt up there, and so it wasn't super safe for them as they were summiting because there was a lot of rock fall. Later, as we kept climbing up, the sun started rising and we were able to see like a very dark cloud all around us. And I remember thinking like, what is that? But then I remember Sunny telling us that looks like smoke. And so at this point, we had a lot of things that were not looking great for us. We had us going too slow up the mountain to begin with. And we also had at the top knowing that there was going to be rock fall. And we also had the conditions of smoky air. Like the smoke was getting to us like in our lungs, and some people were experiencing headaches. And I think that was the point when we decided to turn around, just because it wasn't worth climbing all the way to the top if we already weren't feeling our top best.
Despite a really strong team and plenty of preparation, the mountains make no promises. And at around 9,000 feet in elevation on the slopes of Mount Baker, the team made the call to call that their high point for the day. Many climbers struggle with summit fever, that urge to keep pushing for the top of a peak despite all the risky factors at play. I asked Aubryanna and Cheri which was harder, the physical effort of climbing the mountain or the mental uncertainty of climbing and then deciding not to summit.
It was really mentally hard once we were all like, oh, we're not going to finish. I was like, but I want to. Like, why wouldn't I? And so I really had to like come to terms with that. Like, it is okay to not keep going. Like, this is a really cool view as it is. So like, if everybody does not feel strong enough, then we have to stop here and we will have a more enjoyable time going down than we would if we tried to continue in unfavorable conditions. But I would say that on the way down, it was very hard physically, because at that point I was just like, I just want to get back down to camp. I'm so tired. My legs hurt so bad. My toes are numb. And that was much more physical than the uphill was much more mental.
I'd also definitely agree with that. I think the hardest part for me was kind of like settling with the fact that like we climbed, like all the work we had done was probably not going to help us summit in the end. And I think we all talked about that as a group too. And it was definitely hard to be able to make that decision to turn around, just because it had felt like we had put in so much effort to be able to get there in the first place.
In adventure documentary footage and glossy magazine photos, we see the summit celebrations and epic high elevation shots that so many people equate with success. It would be easy for someone to see these photos and videos and think, well, what's the point of climbing if you don't make it to the top? Of course, for the folks in our community, it's more about the whole story than it is about a summit moment.
In retrospect, thinking about it, like the fact that we didn't make it to the top is not the first thing that I think about. And this is a cliche, but like, it's the journey, not the destination. And the fact that like we made it as far as we did was pretty cool. And it truly was like the first day up, the snow school of learning everything, starting at midnight, climbing, the climbing at night. Like, there was so much that we experienced other than just getting to where we did, that it was really, that was what was fulfilling, and not making it to the top. Sunny did tell us a story about how one of her favorite climbs was one that she didn't even make it to the top of too, because she just like physically couldn't do it. And so she listened to her body, versus one time she got the speed record on Aconcagua, but like she pushed her body too hard and it wasn't even enjoyable. And that was a big like part of our decision of turning around was we'll have a more enjoyable time going down than if we continued pushing ourselves right now. So by not making the summit, maybe it is a little disappointing, but we were able to have a more enjoyable time and really had a great journey up there and down.
I also agree with that because I think I went in with the mindset of wanting to learn more than really like needing the feeling of getting to the top. I think it definitely would have been nice, but I also came out of that trip knowing that, wow, like we learned so much in terms of like snow school and actually mountaineering, but also like I made so many great connections that trip that I wasn't completely bummed and like obsessing over the fact that we didn't make it to the top.
Cheri, Aubryanna, and myself all agree that while a summit can be nice, it's not the driving reason for us to get outdoors. So then, what was the biggest takeaway from this Youth Baker expedition? I asked the team what their biggest lesson was from their first big mountaineering experience.
One of my favorite things was just being like disconnected from society and like the whole like world. So in the van ride before starting, Kat had like told us like, I challenge you to turn your phone on airplane mode and like not even look at it except for like maybe the time. And at least that's what I did. And I texted like my mom and my uncle like beforehand, like I'm turning my phone on airplane mode. I love you, but like I'll talk to you after. And that was just like really like cleansing to just be so disconnected from it. And I actually don't need my phone, and just like really being present with the people that I was with and being present in what we were doing was made me able to like get a lot out of the experience. So I really I should remember everything very well. And it's a very like vivid memory of every single event that happened that maybe like I don't get in my regular life when there's a lot of distractions and everything. And the first thing that I think about is definitely like the people that I met, especially in like the van ride back, like the conversations that we had and just everything like showed that we had grown such close as a team. And it was just really sad to like leave everybody because we had grown really close and like done this cool thing together.
One of the biggest takeaways for me was being so disconnected to society and realizing how little all the issues are in our everyday lives. Because I feel like being on the mountain and having that flow state of like, oh yeah, we're climbing up and that's all we're focused on. Like when we were up there on the mountain climbing, we weren't thinking about all the everyday problems that we have, all the little things we think about. Especially like if people are overthinkers and things like that, I feel like those kind of like thoughts disappear while we're on the mountain because we're just so focused on like what's all around us in the present moment. So we're focused like on all the views or all the technical skills that we need to be using while we're climbing up. And so it was very refreshing being on that trip because I realized like when we got back that wow, like it felt like we were all very present and connected in the moment because none of us were so worried about like everything else that are going on in our everyday lives. Like we had the time and space to be connected with one another and enjoy the environment we were in at the same time.
Both Cheri and Aubryanna echo the findings of the REI study that I mentioned before. When women adventure outdoors, they feel liberated. We're more able to let go of everyday stressors. We're more able to leave the phone on airplane mode. We're more able to connect with strangers who may have a totally different background than we do, but who leave the trip as close friends. And of course, there's extra magic when heading into the wild in an all-women's group.
It was so special going into this trip, knowing it was an all-women's trip. It made me so excited to be able to do that expedition just because I feel like going into the trip, you could definitely sense it on the first day even, that we all were there going in knowing that we were going to be able to connect as women and we weren't going to have to worry about being belittled or even talked over and things like that, like women usually are in society. And we all had so much respect for each other going into the program that it just felt like such a community. And we had already built a family almost going into it, knowing that we were all there on the same basis. Like we all would have some sort of similar experience being a woman in society. And so I feel like it also created an environment where we all felt comfortable sharing different things with each other that we wouldn't normally feel comfortable with. Like I remember on like our first day when we were just packing our things together, and it just felt so whole and connected because we're just able to really be vulnerable with each other from the very beginning. And we all just had that level of mutual respect and connectedness for each other that it felt really special, because I feel like you don't get that in your everyday life with mixed communities, or it's definitely harder to than if you are just able to connect with other women.
Yeah, I like that you said that we were able to be more vulnerable with each other. I think that's really true. We were also just able to get deep on topics that we wouldn't have in a co-ed space. And I did feel like in all of our conversations, we really did respect each other, and our guides were so helpful and really wanted to help us and help us as people and not just as mountaineers. They were also our guides. We could connect to their stories, and one of them told us how she had to take a step out of mountaineering because the masculinity just got to be too much. And I don't think I've experienced that a lot, so it was enlightening to hear some of her stories and the importance of an all-women space in the mountaineering community.
Here's just a bit more for the research nerds. The 2024 Play to Lead report by the Women's Sports Foundation found that early access to sports in a girl's lifetime sets them up to develop leadership skills. 2/3 of women say that they carried lessons and skills from youth sports into adulthood. Most women surveyed said that youth sports helped them develop skills in teamwork, leading from mistakes, and handling pressure. What if every girl and every woman had the chance to build those skills through outdoor sports? What if we featured more women's stories in media so that more than 4 out of 10 girls could name an outdoor female role model? What if we could eliminate the financial and societal barriers to outdoor adventure so that every girl can choose to explore her strengths in the wild? We want to see her outside. We want to see you outside. And so, the work continues at the Cairn Project and the Summit Scholarship Foundation. Women who volunteer as Trailblazers for the Cairn Project host grassroots fundraisers that support Summit Scholarships. Summit Scholarship recipients will hopefully someday reciprocate as Trailblazers themselves. Together, we'll close the gender gap, indoors and out.
I wish that women will never feel like the outdoors is only a place for males, and that they can really find a home there that can be just for them. I just want to say thank you to the Summit Scholarship, because it was truly a life-changing experience that I really, really enjoyed and really, really changed me. And I got to meet all of these cool people that I'm just so grateful for this opportunity.
I'm so eternally grateful for the Summer Scholarship and for all expeditions and for everyone working behind the scenes, from all of our sponsorships to everyone working within these programs to make sure that we got this opportunity to experience this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity.
If you want to support the mission of the Alliance for Gender Equity in Outdoor Adventure, I'll give you several options. 1, you can apply to become a Trailblazer through our program, the Cairn Project. Trailblazers design an adventure fundraiser that crowdfunds scholarships for the Summit Scholarship Foundation. Go to www.cairnproject.org to learn more. 2, you can spread the word about the Summit Scholarship Foundation to help us advance gender equity on and off the mountain. Check it out at www.summitscholarship.org. And 3, you can share the See Her Outside podcast with a friend. Every single share, 5-star review, or comment helps us share stories to get more girls and women outside. See Her Outside is hosted by me, Angie Marie, and edited by Allison Castonguay, with research by Danielle Peacher. Until next time, go get outside.